Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So you just went out and bought a Hobie Pro Angler. You're excited, but you're starting to realize that that boat's a little on the heavy side and you want to know the best way to transport it from your vehicle to the water and vice versa. So I'm going to show you that product and I'm going to show you how to install it and why you shouldn't be afraid or intimidated to drill holes in your $5,000 kayak. So stay tuned. So they sell three different models. They sell the standard, the track kit, and the kit for PA. So the PA kit comes specifically for this. So you get the heavy duty backing plate, you get the hardware, you get the spacers for the A-trail. I'll go over all that in detail. So I'll get right into it. The first thing I've done is I've already removed the bolts. So you've got a hex key, and I'll put the size of the bolts here on the screen. Took the hex key out of the rear end of the A-trails, and you've got the Phillips head bolts on the front. When you take them out, it allows you to pivot the A-trail. So it allows you to keep the A-trail on the boat because you're going to want to see how the spacing lines up there. And what I do, so this backing plate here is threaded on the bolts, which you can kind of see right there. I like to put it on top so I know where to drill, and that allows me to line it up. So when I do put this on the inside of the kayak, it allows a much easier time to get those bolts through. These bolts grab really easily too, but also some things to avoid. So on your map holders, you've got these screws that go through it. You want to make sure you avoid going too far forward, because again, you're not going to be able to drill down and keep from hitting that. So, but what you also want to do is you want to make sure you don't go too far forward here, because you're going to have a pretty decent spacer, so you don't really have a lot of playroom there. But you can see your paddle holders right here. If you want to keep those, you're going to want to line that up to where that screw, and that's why I have this on top. So once I get to where I think I know where I want it to go, I'm going to set it here. I'm going to tape it down to the hole, and then I'm going to put the rod that goes, the bracket that goes across the deck, so I know where that's going to line up. I want to make sure I'm not hitting where my seat is going to go here, but also make sure I'm not hitting these paddle holders if you want to keep those. You can remove those, of course, but again, for the purposes of this video, I want to keep this as close to stock as I can. But anyways, I'll get right into it. I'm gonna go ahead and get these measured out, get them drilled, and you can measure from the edge of the plate to any orientation from this, so that way you know you got them equal. Okay, so I got my plate set up to where I think I want it there. Again, you can always adjust this, but I'm gonna go ahead and measure. So from the edge of the plate to the middle of the rear end here, I'm looking at about 2 inches exactly. I'm going to do that on both sides, and I'm going to tape these backing plates in place. So I'm going to mount the brackets that hold the, you got these little L plate, and that way I'm going to be able to hold it in place to know exactly how it fits. And then these little end sliders go on the end of that rod, and you'll see all that. There's some set screws that go in there. That'll allow me to remove the whole assembly, and it's measured out like it needs to be. I can go ahead and do my drilling, but I'll go through that here. Okay, so here's the bracket. This is also really nice because it's got that groove in it. That gives you gear track that goes along the top. And then you got these little end pieces, these sliders, that there's where those two set screws are gonna go in. These are gonna go on the end, they're gonna slide. So that way it allows you to adjust the width depending on where you're going to do it at. And that's why I wanted to secure these where I wanted to drill. So now I can put these adjustable sliders on the ends to where everything lines up right. Then I'm going to put those set screws in, which you see right here. Again, they're pretty small. And again, I'll put the size of the Allen key that you need for those. But I'm going to get this all measured out. Then I'm going to take it off, then I'm going to do my drilling, so that way once I get the plate on the inside, get these here. So these here are what's going to bolt on, and you can see there's a little T-bolt that's going to go on these grooves here, and that's what holds everything together. And then this hole right here on the bottom, this is what that bolt's going to go through the hole and into those backing plates, and that's what's going to give you that that rigid you know, hold. And also it disperses the weight from the kayak on this landing gear across the deck, and it really, when these are done properly, you're going to prevent all the cracking and everything on there. I will say this, pro tip, make sure you're not loading all of your gear and all of that weight on the kayak. If you want to be a little bit more careful on your hull, again, the more weight you put on that, the more likelihood you're going to see some damage over time. But just know that this is designed to hold the weight of the boat. When this is done properly, you shouldn't have to worry about the damage. And if you do, no worries, it is repairable, but when done properly. Okay, so got the bracket here. I've got the gear track facing upward. I've got the set screw. I put these on the inside and facing outward. So that way, because again, you're going to put those L brackets on here, and those are going to have those slide plates a lot like your T-bolts. And I'm just going to set them on here. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the inside where this hardware goes into these sliders. I'm going to measure from the inside how far that goes in here on both sides. That way I know it's even, you know, it's level, it's even. You don't have it more to one side to the other. It should be about 4.5 inches from the inside of that in there, but I'll make sure of that. Once I get that done, once it looks like I want it to look, you don't have it sticking out the edges, I'm going to go ahead and put those set screws in to hold it in place, and then I'm going to put the your L brackets on here. That way, that'll save you a lot of time once you get the holes drilled, once you get the backing plate in there. It's gonna go together really quickly after that. So now that I know I've got it where I want it, I'm going to take these little set screws, I'm going to insert them in here. That's going to press against the side of this hardware here, and it's going to keep it, that way I know this is measured out. I can take this off. Now that we know that we're still going to be able to use our oars, it's far enough from the seat, that's where we want it to be. So 2 inches from the middle of this insert to the edge of the plate on both sides. So we know we're even. We're going to go ahead and drill, and then I'm going to show you how to do these backing plates. Okay, so I got my set screws in. Big thing here, do not over tighten these. So it just needs to be firm. You don't need to torque this down. This is just to keep these plates from sliding. It does not need to be super hard. If you can over tighten these, and you can back these threads out, so just know that. You can get them on there pretty tight, but just don't lean on it. It's not farm equipment. It's just something for your kayak. So I'll go ahead and do this. I'll take this off, and then we're gonna again measure again from this insert to the edge of the plate, just to make sure it hasn't slid around while we're doing this, and then we're gonna go ahead and drill. Okay, so I kind of skipped one step here that I do. So this pack here, these you have these little circle spacers, these pretty thick washers. This is going to raise, this is going to go between the bottom of your H-rail and the deck, but it has the longer bolts in here that are going to replace the bolts that we took off of those hex key bolts. They're the same size, they're just a different length. But what I do is I take the L brackets and I screw them on to this backing plate and onto this, so I know how that's going to look. Again, I always do that. Your L bracket bolts are going to be these long hex key bolts here, and I'll do that here right now.
Again, you could screw these in by hand. You don't necessarily have to use your wrench. Again, we're doing this just to see how this fits. So you're going to see how that works. Got the L brackets here, you got the bolts on the backing plate. If these aren't even like you see here, don't worry about that. Again, you're working with a curved surface. These are meant to be adjustable. And then you've got some slide plates here, which you can kind of see in the bag here. And then you've got screws that go into that. So it's going to work like your Yak Attack, you know, your T-bolts go right into these grooves and hold it in place. But that's how this is going to look on top. This backing plate's going to be underneath. It's going to cinch together really good. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, and then we're going to get this taken off, get the holes drilled and marked, and then we're going to put that backing plate on the inside and then screw it down from the top here. Okay, so when the backing plate was on, I just took a Sharpie marker and just went through it. They suggest you to use a drill bit that's slightly bigger just to make it a lot easier with the installation here. I'll put the size here on the screen, of course, and we're going to go ahead and drill in. Always start with a slower speed too, so that way your drill bit doesn't dance around. Okay, see right there? Everything looks good, everything lines up. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other side. And I'll show you how I do the backing plates, because it is a little tricky. You're moving around this here, your flush mount rod holder. So what I do is, I use paracord, but you can just use simple string. Make sure you don't use bungee. A lot of people with kayaks, they'll use bungee, it stretches too much. Use paracord, something that doesn't have stretch, or just simple string. Some people take a bolt and then tie a couple of overhand knots and then go through. We're going to go through the hole of the backing plate. So again, what I do is I take an end, I go through one of these holes. I'll go through the farthest hole here, or I'm sorry, the closest to the back. So I go through it. I'm going to go through your access hatch. I'm going to grab that string and pull it in. We're going to run that through the back hole here, and then I'm going to guide it with my arm underneath through it while I'm pulling up to kind of guide it in there. That way you don't have it, you know, rumbling around loose in there. Using your arm to kind of guide that up the best you can. You don't have to have a super long arm to do that, but it does help. But I'll do that here, and I'll video me doing this to kind of answer any questions you may have on that. Okay, again, I'm going to open up the hatch. I'm going to feed the line through this rear hole here, so right here, and I'm going to start bringing it in. Okay. So I've got the string here. So through that hole, I grabbed it. You do have some foam blocking here too, so just know that you'll have to go kind of to the inside. If you don't have long enough arms, you might, you know, maybe some pliers to kind of reach into that. Maybe some needle nose pliers will help on that, but it shouldn't be necessary. You should be able to get enough string in there to kind of bunch it up. Sometimes it'll curl up. That's okay. It just gives you something to grab onto. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this onto this, and then we're going to guide that plate back up into that gunnel. Again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going through it, and I'm just going to tie a couple of overhand knots just to keep it from slipping out, just like this. so that way when you're pulling it up, it's not going to slip out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to guide it in with my arm while I'm pulling up the slack until that plate gets in, you know, locked in place there. And again, moving to the side of that foam block in there. Okay, so there you go. And I'm gonna see if you can see this here. You can actually see the threading in there, so everything lines up right. That's the important part. So that's why I tape it to the top. That's why I mark it before I drill, because when you pull this up from this point, this should line up, because there's not a lot of room for that to move. And you can see you've got the threading right there. So now what you can do is you can take this bolt and you can just thread it right in. That's why we go with a larger drill bit, so that you're not having to eat through the plastic in order to get this through it. The size of this doesn't really matter, because again, this bolt is going through that backing plate. That's where you get your hold from. It's not from it grabbing the plastic. But that just allows me to get this threaded to the plate. And guys, again, using a bigger drill bit than the bolt is going to help out immensely with this. So now when I let go, this backing plate stays put. I can feed this line back out and then put the other bolt here. Right now, these are just going to hold that backing plate up. When we're ready to put these L brackets back on it, we're going to take these off one at a time, putting this on it. That way that keeps your backing plate from falling back down. But again, I'm going to put the backing plate on this side, put the bolts in just like we did here. Okay, so got the bolts put in both sides. Now it's safe to take the tape off. And then these, the one big hole here, that's going to go right here. Your track there is going to go through the side to this side of both of these here. It'll look a lot like that. I'm gonna go ahead and install these on both sides loosely so I can adjust them, because you'll need to move them around a little bit when you're putting the track along the top here. In your hardware pack, this is where you're gonna want to get those slide plates out. Should have 8 total. The smaller hex bolts are gonna go through these, but what we're gonna do, okay, so now we're ready to put the bolts and the slide plates on. What I usually do is I'll take the lock washer, and then you got just the standard washer that goes under that. Go through there, and then your slide plates, you've got one side there that kind of flares up. I have that toward the bolt. What that allows you to do, you can just kind of spin them on. You want them on there loose because you want to be able to slide them right on there. So right here, you just make sure they line up. Should slide right on, maybe with a little adjustment. So that way, they're not on there too tight, and we'll go ahead and get these on. So now what we're ready to do, I'm going to remove just one. And again, you can do it by hand. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide one of these off. And I'm going to go ahead and install it. Not tightening it down too tight, because again, we still want it to sit on there kind of loose. So again, it gives us that adjustment. It just saves time. So I'll go ahead and get that done. Once I get this tightened down, I'm going to remove this one, do the same thing, and I'm going to do that on both sides. Just like that. So again, it's still on there loose. Now I'm going to take this one out. Okay, so got the L brackets installed on both sides. Again, I still haven't tightened these down, but I just guided the plates in. Got this where I wanted it to be, to where it's nice and flush there on the edge. On the other side there as well. So now what I'm going to do, all I'm going to do is I'm ready to tighten these down now. So your slide plates, you're going to tighten those down. You're going to get that snug fit. Make sure your set screws are tight enough. And then after that, we're going to put the spacers on your H-rail, which I'll show you that here in a second. Then you're going to install the bolt on the front of the H-rail, so this is all secure. And after that, we're just sliding it, the the hardware, installing the wheels on it, and then you're done. So hardest part's over. Now it's just assembling the parts. So I'll get on that right now, and then I'll show you about those spacers. These are your spacers, and they come with the 2 longer bolts. Again, they're the same size bolts that, you know, they're just replacing the bolts that went into this insert through the rear end of the H-rail. Just gonna get that lined up. These bolts can be a bit stubborn, so just know that going into it. Make sure everything lines up. And we're just gonna tighten that down. So you can see the spacer here. You see what that does? It allows it to just barely clear that. You want to be careful not to go too tight on this until after you get that bolt in the front of it, and then you can make that, because again, you know, again, you may need to kind of maneuver it around a little bit just to get that bolt started on those inserts. And then after you get that front one started, go all the way down with it, then finish this one off, and then repeat on the other side. So again, got that one in, that one's tight. Now I can finish this off. Just know if it doesn't line up perfectly, you can loosen this one up just a little bit more if you need to, and it'll allow the front of it to come in just enough to where you can get this, get that one in there, get it started, and then you can come back here after that one is finished and then finish this one off here. Got everything installed on the deck, got everything tightened down. Now you've got these little C-bars here, and then your wheels. So these are actually the wheels off the C-Tug carts, which are really nice. All you do is you got the bar here with the 2 holes in it. Just gonna put the wheel, and it's reversible. It doesn't matter which way it goes. And then you got 4 of these little clamps. You're gonna put one of these on each side. So you see you got the hole there, go up through there, clip on it. So that secures it. And then you're gonna do one on the back side. That's gonna prevent a lot of your wheel movement as far as in and out. So it's gonna look just like that. And then this part here, that's what's gonna plug right in there. Just like that. So there you go. That is the installation. This is what it'll look like when it's being hauled or out on the water. And then again, all it is just sliding in and out. Again, when you're on the water, that's the way it's going to set up. It's not going to be dragging in the water.